Securities. Your line is open.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Hey, Scott.
And good luck to you, Mark.
Thanks, Scott.
So, two questions for you. Really, one of the things you were talking about last year was that you had a little bit excess inventory in the channels in the other businesses, the non-pool businesses. I guess my first question would be, how are you feeling about those? And then secondly, I'm hoping you can unpack the filtration margin decline in the quarter, by size of issue, and the impact that the carryover effect of the same into the first half.
Yeah, so let me take the margin impact in filtration, and I'll hand the rest over to Mark. I mean, what we're doing in Pentair Water Solutions is adding what's called a mobile retail center, which think of it as a salesperson in a vehicle that helps the consumer be able to take a look at the product that we're trying to sell and see that product in action in the actual vehicle itself. We are accelerating the rate of investment of putting those vehicles and those people on the road and training those new sales organizations, right? So think of that investment being significantly ahead of the revenue that they generate. And right now we're targeting somewhere around $750,000 a year in revenue from a vehicle that's been in place for 12 months or greater. And so it takes a while to ramp up to that level and to have that working. So that is the primary investment that's continuing in filtration, and will probably continue for some period of time, as we believe that we're doing the right things to drive long-term value, but there is a push of cost ahead of that growth. Mark, you can take the second.
Sure, and just to go back to sort of the inventory question. So it's a good point. We talked about pool or inventory both in the pool and in some of the other businesses. Relates to some of the buy ahead that happened in the back half of 2018. So a couple things that introduces and factors into our guidance for 2020, but it also helps explain the Q4 19 performance, as on a year-over-year comp basis, we've got the tougher comps in 2018 that are tied to that buy ahead that was related to the price increase.
So I'm translating that to mean that you're okay with the inventories in the channels as we enter 2020 in those businesses.
That's correct. That's correct. So my comment on sort of normalized inventory levels would be applied really across all of the businesses.
Thank you. And John, if I could just revisit your response, you talked about the investments. Is that the only item that drove down the margin, or were there other factors as well in filtration?
Yeah, I mean, filtration on a historical basis, there's a lot of different pieces to that business, as we talked about, with different margin profiles. So some of that is just a mix in the fourth quarter related to other quarters, as we just look at the makeup of the product sales in the quarter.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Brian Job with William Blair. Your line is open.
Good morning. This is Joe Aiken on for Brian today. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about what you're seeing in some of your end markets right now. Are you seeing more stability across some of those end markets right now, and particularly on the industrial side? Are you seeing demand start to level off there?
Well, two different questions, so let me try to address. I think when we look at the linearity of our revenue, and you take a look at moving throughout a year from Q1 to Q2 to Q3 to Q4, we've seen significant stability in most of all of our product categories. Where we're exposed to residential commercial, we still see resilience, and we still see a strong consumer sentiment driving incremental demand. And industrial, yeah, I mean, things have gotten a little slower globally. We don't have a lot of industrial exposure, but the product lines we have shown, basically more of a flattening of the quarter-to-quarter growth trajectory.
Okay, thanks. And then just on the non-pool residential business, I know you mentioned some normalized inventory levels. What are your expectations in terms of revenue growth for that business in 2020?
That would really be tied to kind of my comment on the filtration business, so sort of the low mid-single-digit growth rate.
Okay. Okay, great. Thanks for taking my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Julian Mitchell with Barclays. Your line is open.
Hey, good morning. This is Trish on for Julian. Just a quick one on the Consumer Solutions segment. What percentage of sales goes through e-commerce at this point? And I don't know if you have any target for that, and then just any significant difference in margins there between e-commerce and other distribution.
Yeah, I don't have a target for that. Primarily, I would look at what we're trying to do is consumer-enabled, which is different than D2C, right? So we're trying to engage the consumer and make the consumer aware of all the different options available to them. And then we're trying to bring it through a professional channel, either in the event of us providing those services or our affiliated partners bringing that through their channel. Our direct-to-consumer business today is just Pelican, and it's what they did before. And think of that as 20 to 30 million maybe that gets sold in the form of a product. The rest of it's all sold as services.
Okay, great. That's helpful. And then just maybe any early feedback on the Pentair Home app. I know it was launched last quarter, but anything there?
Yeah, well, we did a soft launch, and we'll be continually take the consumer feedback and evolve it. But we're excited. We obviously are not trying to be the integrated home platform. There's other companies who will lead in that area, but we want to tie into those platforms. And then we want to have a whole suite of products and capability that would help you make the consumer more aware of their water needs. Where I'm most excited by, though, is on the dealer side, right? And as we provide the connectability of that app and allow the consumer to get their dealers scheduled or request the service in the most efficient way, and then also follow up on the consumer experience, that's what we're really excited about with that application launch.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your next question comes from Brent Lindsey with Vertical Research Partners. Your line is open.
Hey, good morning, all.
Morning.
Hey, just want to come back to the 2020 guide and specific around just margin. So you said core incrementals of 30 to 40 for the total company. What are you expecting for margin performance by segment? Do you think both are up year over year? And then any color on restructuring, what you're targeting for this year?
Yes to margin expansion in both segments. And right now we're not targeting or forecasting any major restructuring or restructure.
Okay, and then looks like you're guiding a 2% divestiture in Consumer Solutions. It looks like it takes place later in the year. Well, maybe just some color there, strategic rationale, what's being sold.
Sure, and just to clarify, so there's kind of a net going on in Q1. So there's the acquisition timing of Aqueon and Pelican from 2018 that lapses and coming into this quarter. So that's about $12 million. And then the rest of it is the sale of the aquaculture business that we had announced previously. So that sale has been ongoing, and so the guide reflects the assumption that business has been divested in 2020.
Okay, great. I'll pass it along. Thanks.
Thank you.
There are no further questions at this time. I will now turn the call back over to the company for closing remarks.
Thank you for joining us today. Despite the challenging start to 2019, we made great progress with respect to our vision to build a high-performance growth culture. We believe we have significant opportunities ahead of us, and with our customer-centric structure and shared services support platform, we are ready to further advance the Pentair strategy more efficiently and with a greater sense of urgency. I speak for the full Pentair team when I say we are excited about our future, optimistic about 2020, and motivated to create value for all key stakeholders in the near and longer term. Thank you for your continued interest. Mariama, you can conclude the call.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's conference call. Thank you for participating. You may now disconnect.